This episode is brought to you by Whitaker Garage Doors, your one-stop shop for all things garage doors, proudly based in Peekskill, New York. Your home is a direct reflection of your personal style, and let's face it, your garage doors are the first thing people see when they pull up your driveway. Whether you're looking for the timeless charm of a classic carriage house door or the clean, sleek look of a basic wood finish, Whitaker Garage Doors offers traditional options for every taste and budget. I can personally vouch for their incredible service. When I had my own garage doors done, I was blown away by their timeliness, professionalism, and overall respect for their clients. Jonathan, Cassara, and their entire team are top-notch, and they really go the extra mile to ensure you're happy with the final result. So if you're in the market for a new garage door or need some repairs, give them a call or find them on Instagram at Whitaker_doors. Don't forget to tell them you're a friend of Dave's over at the No Snooze Podcast. Whitaker Doors. You won't regret it. Now, back to the epi. Adversity? Bring it. The struggle? I welcome it. Snooze on life? Never that. I am Dave Reggina, and this is the No Snooze Podcast. Come on. Welcome back, No Snooze Podcast, episode 232. Here's another episode of our interview series. I had the chance to join my guy, Vinny Brusco, on the Council of Dudes podcast, and we went deep. We talked mental health, how to shift out of negative thinking, the power of leadership through service, and what it really means to show up for one another as men. Vinny, I appreciate you, my brother, for creating a space where these conversations matter. I hope you guys find value here. Enjoy. I don't think life is about perfection.
Yeah.
It's about direction.
Welcome to the Council of Dudes podcast. I'm your host, Vinny Brusco. I am a father, a husband, the founder of Agora Social Club, a purple belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, a certified life coach, and a facilitator of the Council of Dudes men's group. This podcast is here to help you tap into and follow your golden thread, that feeling that pulls you forward to become the best version of yourself. If you're someone who's into personal development and self-help and is looking to live a life of more alignment, then this is the podcast for you. Subscribe to the channel, click the notification button, and follow along on the journey of the show.
What's going on, guys? This is Dave Reggina, and I am here with Vinny Brusco. I want you guys to check out this episode of the Council of Dudes. Thanks for having me on, my brother.
And here we go.
First off, thanks for doing this. This is long overdue. But as we said at Worship and Network, I've kind of come to a place with these things, not always with everything, but with these things to let them play out how they're gonna. Right? Like so often I'm like, I gotta schedule this person at this time and this day, and then they end up playing out however they're supposed to, right? So I try to let go of that just a little bit. So thanks for doing this.
Divine timing, my brother. Thank you for having me. Love the spot. We're at a great location.
Thank you.
You know, I think one of your words too is like unwinding, right? Like have a space to unwind. It's funny, when I walked in here, I felt that energy of just being able to unwind. So
I appreciate that.
It's a very very safe space, good energy in here.
Thank you.
And shout out to Nate behind the camera as well. So.
Always. And Mike. We met at one of your dinners, one of the ACE dinners. And from the moment you presented yourself and spoke in front of everybody, I said, like, what a powerful person. What a presence that you carry, other than just your size, right? And you have a very deep voice. You carry yourself at a certain energetic frequency. But besides that, the way you conduct yourself, the way you present yourself at these dinners and on social media and on the podcast is something that most men would look at and go, wow, that's a very impressive human being. How did you get to this version of Dave Reggina?
Well, thank you for that, Vin. I appreciate that. definitely don't receive compliments well.
Yeah, it's something I work on.
Yeah, no, but you know,
Actively.
I definitely received that, and I appreciate that feedback. Yeah, so I mean, people see a product now, which was even very different from 2017 era. You know what I mean? Dave Reggina was very much about all look and no substance.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I had battled Crohn's disease early growing up, and that's where like a lot of my negative self-talk and self-doubt kind of creeped in. But I was a popular dude. I was good at basketball. So like I had this level of confidence, and I always attest my confidence to basketball. The sport of basketball will do amazing things for you. I'll tell you, like, you know, give me a ball and I'll give you a bucket. You know what you were saying? Right now it's give me a microphone, I'll give you a message.
Yeah, beautiful. I love that.
You know, when that ball goes through the hoop, man, like something happens, right? And the sport of basketball, the camaraderie, the teamwork, the energy, I just had this swag about me is basically what I'm trying to say. But internally, I didn't have any swag. I didn't know what swag was. I thought turning up on people and being aggressive with people was the way, but also then my body was really skinny. Right. So like, I was like, yeah, but I'll beat you up though. Like I know how to fight. Right. Like that was like my thing back then. Yeah. And I grew up in Mount Vernon, New York, not too far from here. And, you know, there was some trauma in the household coming up, you know, with addiction in my mom specifically. She's 6+ years sober now. I shout her out every time I have an opportunity to do.
Amazing, as you should.
Yes, absolutely. She's a hero of mine. And so was my father, you know, so I didn't come from like a bad family by any means, but just saw a lot of things in the house that I thought were normal that as I got older, it wasn't very normal. And the Crohn's disease bout really, really kicked me to the curb for the very first time in my life. And I had lost about 40 pounds in 4 to 5 months. You know, so that was a pretty tough time in my life because I didn't know what was going on. I was going to the bathroom 16 times a day. I was carrying toilet paper in my backpack. And that time in my life, I felt like the world was like kind of against me.
Yeah.
You know, and the doctor was coming, yo, you're going to live with this for the rest of your life. But then that swag would kick in and I'd be like, no, I'm not. Like, no, I'm not. So I started like reading and like even journaling at that time, creating a diet plan. And that's how like my passion for wellness really began. But in 2017, my life was a mess. I mean, I had got married at the age of 24, divorced now in a very healthy relationship with Katie, as you know. But I was going out and seeking attention from women that I shouldn't be seeking attention from. I was drinking a lot, utilizing recreational drugs, but I looked good to the outside and I had a good job in local government. So things kind of seemed like Dave Reggina had it together. And I basically had like an internal breakdown and meltdown. And then when I sought therapy out, that kind of like really shifted the perspective of my life. Not only did I need like a counselor for my relationship at that time, but I actually enjoyed the process of now talking about my feelings. But it was very different from when I was 16 years old. The first time that I spoke with a therapist, it was absolutely atrocious because the family member that I was with completely fabricated a story, lied to the therapist. The therapist told me, yo, you got anger issues, you need work, but didn't provide me with any level of like, hey, this is what you can work on. So I was traumatized from therapy. So I never wanted to do therapy. Yeah. You know, the way that I live my life is I'm a huge proponent of therapy and mental health because I was so unhealthy at that time. And I, you know, one conversation kind of led to another. And then, you know, I was able to build back like a life that I was like, not necessarily proud of, but like I felt worthy of at that time. Like my mom, she took control of her life. She's the leader of her life. She ended up getting sober. But also me, I started to shift the things in my relationships. And this is now through work and therapy. That's how my passion for podcasting actually began. Yeah. Because one day I made a switch. And when I went to the gym, I said, you know what? I can't listen to the things that got me into the clubs talking about money, girls, and drugs because that's exactly what I'm doing. And I didn't know at the time I was programming my subconscious. Yeah. So I shifted to a podcast, and it was an Ed Milet, Tony Robbins podcast that really changed my life. Wow. I couldn't tell you exactly what they were talking about, but they were talking about the financial wealth, but they were talking about like emotional health. And when they were speaking, Vin, something clicked in me, and I was starting to feel like that feel things. See, like that's awesome. Like these men that I don't even know are really like they're inspiring me. So I was quiet about it, and I said, "Wow, this might be something good that I'm onto." So I just worked out for like 6 months, and every time I went to the gym, instead of listening to rap music, I listened to a podcast. And then for the next 3 years, I started implementing all the things that I learned from podcasting, from specifically Ed Milet and Tony Robbins.
Not a bad tutor to follow, right?
Right.
Yeah.
But that happened to be my first experience into like real personal and professional development. And I started like implementing all the things and saving money here and making my bed here and starting to hydrate, pairing it with the working out that I've already done and like a morning routine and like getting healthy habits and doing all this stuff. Did that for a period of 3 years. And I was like, oh, okay. Now I can tie this all together. And that's how the No Snooze podcast came about. Because I've always like not snoozed on my life. I've always been a leader of my life. What I thought was like working out and making good money and like having a good career and that type of stuff. But my relationships were terrible. So once I started to shift my relationships, I was like, oh, okay, here it is. I can now provide some level of inspiration and encouragement to others. And that's how the podcast actually came about.
A lot comes up for me and all that. I think the crazy part of it is that you're externally overcompensating for this internal state, right? And internally, mentally, maybe even spiritually, and certainly physically, you're kind of a mess inside.
Not kind of.
You are a mess inside, right? Physically with the Crohn's, mentally, obviously, and seemingly that all leads to spiritually. And then on the outside, it's this imposter syndrome where it's like, hey, I'm doing well. And then inside, it's the complete opposite. And going to the gym and looking a certain way, so obviously you're a big guy, that would carry a certain amount of clout, right? Like, and you said like, yeah, I'll just fuck you up. Like that's this immature societal expectation of what a man is. And it isn't until we really start to do the work, which is what you're doing, right? Consistently and constantly, that we're able to learn that that's not even like the right answer. And that comes from such a place of feeling small, as big as you are. I mean, for me, it's the same thing, right? It's like, it wasn't until I started doing jiu-jitsu and really getting a grasp on my mental health and my relationship with myself. And therefore now I can have a better relationship with the world around me and those around me. And once you start to change yourself and grow and develop, the world around you starts to shift completely.
Absolutely. And I didn't mention faith in any of that because at that time, like faith wasn't really a huge thing for me at all. You know, like God actually came into my life at a very pivotal moment with my mom. I don't know if you've heard the story, but I'll
please
quickly share it. You know, it ended up getting to a point to where like she was either going to die or we were just going to cut her off. And like, I couldn't talk to her anymore because everything just started to go downhill. Heavily addicted to pills and alcohol was a thing. And one day she was staying in my house, but she had wanted to get sober. And that was the thing about my mom. And that's the thing about addiction that I noticed, man. Like, the person has to want to really get sober. And she said, David, like, I want to get sober, but she just couldn't, right? Because like, you can't, she couldn't figure it out. Like, she just couldn't do it. So one night I got kind of fed up. She was staying with me and every 5 minutes she was knocking on my door because I had her pills. I had access to them. Because she said she wanted to get sober. So I'm like, all right, we'll try it. Like the doctor gave me sugar pills and real pills. And like, I would kind of, you know, administer as needed. But every 5 minutes, then knock, knock, knock. David, I need my pills. And then I lost it and I snapped. And I went into the room and I said, you know what, Mom, take these. And I poured all of them into my hand. And a tear came down her face and she was like, David, you want me to die? And I said, no, Mom, I don't want you to die. But if this will make you happy, I want you to be happy. She typically was taking anywhere from 8 to 10 pills a day. She takes one pill at that time. I couldn't even tell you if it was the sugar pill or the real pill. Her eyes roll to the back of her head. She hits the headboard. And I'm like, oh my God. But right before that happened, I said something to her. And I said, I want you to be happy. And unless a higher power can save you, there's nothing that I can do for you. And then that happens. I'm thinking, oh my God, she's dead. So I wait a minute, I sit back and I see that like she's kind of breathing. I'm like, well, let her sleep because she hasn't slept in days. About 5 hours later, she comes into my room. The knock was very different. She looked me dead in the face and she said, David, I'm ready to get sober. Shifted the course of my entire life with faith. Not only hers, but mine. We have this inside joke. She calls me her higher power and I call her the higher power because that higher power was in both of us at that time and used each other to make this shift in my life. And that was also the very next day that I went to the gym and put on that podcast. So that's how, like, now I'm a man of faith. But even still, from that time till today, my evolution was crazy with God. Like, I didn't really know my way. I just recently found that over the past couple years, specifically put a lot of work in the past year and a half now. And that's how, like, my whole faith kind of came about too.
Wow. Yeah. I mean, you can't when something like that happens, you can't deny it's real, right? Like it's not, it's not read in text. It's not a film. It's not a reenactment. You lived a real experience, and that can come in different forms too, right? Like, I think sometimes when it comes to faith, we expect it to be these bigger moments like that, but they do also happen in like these micro miracles, right? These small little miracles, these small serendipities, right? Not coincidental things that the next day you're hitting the play button on something totally different. And, you bring up a good point. Like, we consume, especially now with social media, we consume so much stuff, like constantly consuming. And we don't realize, I've spoken about this before, but we don't realize that is part of our diet. That is what we consume, audio, reading, podcast, whatever it is, TV, that is all programming us in a certain way. Yes. And when you're listening to certain music or you're influenced by certain people, there is a part of you that is going to show up in a way that is in alignment with those people and that thing. And then when you flick the switch and you go the other way, you say, it's going to be more about personal development and physical and mental health and spiritual health. Now you're consuming that type of content, and now it's changing you internally. So how did that affect your actual overall health with the Crohn's disease?
The whole experience?
Yeah.
Well, so I did start to regain control of the Crohn's disease about, I'd say, my second or third year of college. I actually started going to college at Bryant University up in Rhode Island. And I actually came home because my Crohn's was not doing the best, but also because I was drinking heavily, a lot of caffeine, smoking, doing all the things that you shouldn't be doing with Crohn's. So when I came home, I ended up like really taking back control of my diet and logging things, seeing what worked, seeing what didn't work. And that's how I ended up at Manhattanville University, because it was local. It's crazy to call it university. It was at Hispanic College, right. And that's where I met Eddie, by the way, right? Mm-hmm. Shout out to Eddie Wezo. And emotionally, I think there was a lot of things going on at that time, but physically, I was still able to regain control with like the healthy diet and, the healthy consumption of starting like some level of healthy habits. But to be honest, even at that time, I was still a mess.
Right.
It wasn't until recently that I've really now like flipped the script on the Crohn's over the past, 5 or so years, to where, it's not only in deep remission, it's almost undetectable.
Wow.
However, just a couple months ago, 2 months ago now, I get a colonoscopy and I stopped drinking, well over like almost a year and a half now, right? So I'm thinking like my doctor's going to come back and he's going to be like, Dave, man, you're living great, bro. Keep it up.
All right.
Dude, he did the opposite. He did the exact opposite. And he gave me a piece of paper and it said high risk colon cancer surveillance. I said, what? What does that mean? And they found 6 polyps while they did the colonoscopy that were over 4 millimeters in size, which typically is the beginning stages of concern. And he also saw like a white lesion next to one of the ulcers, right? Crohn's disease is a lot of ulcers in the digestive tract, and it causes flare-ups and a lot of stuff. So when he gave that piece of paper to me, though, something weird like really was happening, because I was so calm. Because not for a second did I believe that was going to be true. And I think I could relate this back to like breakthroughs in general. I think real breakthroughs, they start with belief. And not for a second did I believe that was going to affect my life in a negative way. I think a lot of people break down in general, not because of what they're faced with, but because of what they do with what they're faced with. And that's why the word action is so important and pivotal to what we do with Action Cultivates Excellence, because it shifted not only, my life, but also my business partner, Sean Degnan's as well.
Yeah.
So that's how it kind of, all ties in there with that.
So do you think that the Crohn's started due to like some emotional distress?
Or absolutely.
Yeah.
So they tie it to 2 things. They tie it to hereditary and stress. So that's where my cousin does have it. He's a little bit older than me, but went into like emergency surgery, like was putting off this pain for a long time. They had to cut 20 feet of his intestines. And, you know, thank God I didn't have to go that route, but I've battled this my entire life, man. And I still have flare-ups. I still have blood in the stool. I never have a hard stool. Like, I don't even know what that looks like.
Right.
And then that doctor, to circle back to that, you know, what that doctor told me, he basically was like, I'll give you your results in a week. And I'm like, in a week? Thank God I'm into leadership, my brother, because I wouldn't know what to do. And he ends up calling me 1 week later and basically saying, Dave, not only is it not high-risk colon cancer, there's no detection of even your Crohn's disease right now. And I said, well, how did you miss that?
How do we go from you might have colon cancer
But when
to
I tell you this paper, I'll show you the paper. Right first words, like not even like anything else. It started with high and ended with cancer.
Right.
And I'm like, with a bunch of sentences after that. And I'm like, how did we get there? And he said, well, you know, it's something that we have to do. It's protocol when you see something like that. And also I have had Crohn's disease for a very long time. So that in itself kind of puts me in this potential category for the rest of my life as like being 50% more likely to develop it over time.
Sure.
So it made a little bit more sense, but I'm like, yo, like you can't be giving people this type of stuff. And he was like, I get it. It's not me. It's more of a protocol.
Yeah, structure thing. Yeah.
But you know, going back to the belief thing, man, I just believe in myself and I also believe in God.
Yeah.
Right. I believe in faith over facts big time because although that piece of paper at that time seemed like a fact, my God is way bigger than any piece of paper, my brother. Yeah. Way bigger. And I knew that if I put it in his hands, the rest will be. So I moved on about my week. I worked out the very next day. I woke up, I hydrated, I prayed, I did all the things that I do. And I just lived my life until I got that phone call. Now, midweek, I'm not going to lie. My girlfriend did, you know, reap she did not reap the benefits of that because there were times that I was like, oh, I'm stressed. Like, what if this comes back? And she's like, your God has got you. Yeah. And that's the other thing about my lady that I love, man. She's so committed to a lifestyle of faith in her own being.
Yeah.
And she's been a huge proponent of, you know, encouraging me and inspiring me to want to get closer to God. And I think that's huge in relationships too. You know, when you have a very strong woman by your side that's also praying on you daily, I think the modern man is a lot more likely to be successful in life.
Yeah. Behind every strong man is a stronger woman holding him up, right? Yeah, it's interesting because if you weren't a man of faith and belief and in leadership, that piece of paper would spiral people, would completely send people down totally different mindsets and potentially make it a self-fulfilling prophecy, right? Because all of a sudden you start to get into that anxious, depressed, stressed state, and who knows what's percolating underneath in the realm of potential. And then all of a sudden it manifests to reality. But having a strong faith, having a strong mind, having a strong approach to life, which you do and you embody, allows you to look at that piece of paper and say, okay, and still move accordingly, right? Not miss a beat. But then, of course, naturally, there's going to be that percolation in your ear. What if? What if? It's natural. It has to happen. And to have that support around you and internally is huge.
And not only, you know, and I would be remiss not to mention this too, because I talk about God and community being like pivotal for me and everything.
Yeah.
At that very moment, I didn't tell many people at all. But the people that I told besides my girlfriend was Sean Degnam, Nick Manente, Joe Kay, Mike Press, Ozzy Bobe, and Mark Carter. Right? Like,
that's it.
That was it. Like, I told 6 people, those are my brothers.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? So like, They all came back to me and were like, yo, like, you know, all right, but you're built for this, man.
Right.
Like, this is now part of that test will become your testimony. And they told me that. And they said, look, man, it's already done. Even some of those guys are not as into faith as me, but they know how I am with faith. And that was the first thing they said. They all said like, yo, God got you, bro. Like, you're good. And their belief in me, I was like, oh, I'm great. Like, I got him upstairs. I got these guys downstairs. It's a good analogy, right? Upstairs.
That's good. That's good. That's good. I like that. I was very caught up in the analogy. I just said that for myself. That was good. That was good.
I'm my type of guy. I'll tell a joke and I'll be the only one laughing.
No, it was good.
Wait, you didn't understand it?
I got it. That was good. That was good. Talking about faith. So obviously you're very much so led by faith, which I think is such a powerful thing. I'm now leaning way more into my faith than I ever have. And you bring up a good point in earlier, is that the relationship with God becomes this in and out, right? This check in, check out. I do think that, I was raised Catholic. I grew up Catholic. I still go to Catholic church. I've been to Christian church. And it's just what works for me and my family. It's what resonates with us. And I don't think there's a right or wrong way of doing it. It's amazing how you get brought back to faith. For me, it was through my daughter when she was going to communion, and we went to church, and the priest said, remember, when you come up, you're receiving the God who created the universe. And I would always refer to God as source, universe. I would never say God, right? I think because you're raised in a certain way, and so God becomes this ominous figure that has a white beard and shakes his finger every time you jerk off. Like you're doing, you know what I mean? Like, and it just becomes this like feeling of fear and less than. And the reality is, it's not that. And the introduction of church back into my life has become this. Like, I look forward to going to church. I make it a point not to miss church, not just because of the family unit, because what it does for me. And how God has presented himself in my life. And I'm like, oh, this is a different relationship now. And when you have a child, which I know you have a little girl, and you speak obviously so much about fatherhood, it truly gives you an insight, the slightest insight into what that relationship actually looks like.
Right. No, I agree. And I didn't know exactly, I guess, your start with it. And so it's good to hear the context behind it. We've had many conversations in terms of course, faith stuff, but that's what I really actually I've always told Eddie Wazo this too. Eddie has been this man of faith when I met him in college. And I wish that I was like that. Yeah. But for me, I'm the type, I'm very stubborn. Right. Like, you got to shake my life.
Or have your mom. Yeah.
But everything was a mess, bro. Like, it was undeniable. I couldn't go any lower besides like losing my job. But even mentally, I don't think it would have made a difference because I was still in such this dark place and just drinking to just get to the next day and, taking things to just kind of evaporate, but then going to the club with a nice gold chain and then getting some attention and being like, oh, that's my high. And I couldn't relate to anything. And that's why I always shout out Eddie, because he's always been that way. And him and I used to have these deep conversations in the car in college while we were driving around, and he'd be talking about God. And I'm over here like, bro, where's the beer? Like, right.
Well, because it's not cool, right? Like, there's Buddha right there, right? Which, that might get switched out to Jesus pretty soon, but, but there's nothing wrong with it, but there's nothing, seemingly now in hindsight, I think it is cool. Like, I watch The Chosen, right? And if you haven't watched it, you gotta watch it.
Absolutely.
But in watching it, you're like, oh, Jesus was a cool dude. I'm watching, I'm like, I want to be hanging out with this guy, like just kind of roaming around, doing his thing. But on a cultural level, to some degree, it's not cool, right? When everyone's talking about Jesus and Jesus thumping and all that stuff, it becomes just like, all right, enough is enough. But when you start to lean into it and you start to see it for what it is, and you really start to believe in it, that's the other part of it. It does become cool. It becomes like mythologically cool. Mm-hmm. It's like, it's out of this world cool. And that's what makes it so hard to believe, but also so amazing to believe.
Right. No, I mean, when I started to study Jesus, I was like, oh my God, like this is who I want to be. Because externally, I'm so far from him. And even internally, like my thoughts are not very Jesus-like. I'll be
right.
Even still. But the biggest takeaways I think I have from him are like just giving and gratitude, right? He lived a life of love. He lived a life of kindness. And although we all want to get to it, right? You want to get to the bag, you want the chick, you want the money and the car, whatever you want, you have to actually give to receive that, right? And also gratitude is huge, because when you start to be grateful in life, gratitude turns ordinary things into extraordinary blessings. So the way that I kind of look at things now, like I am so blessed to be here in this space. We put the A.C.E on, like we got these great guys behind the camera, these microphones. Like when you start looking at these things, right? This phone that you have, like my body works, my breath is here. I can take 2 steps. When you really focus on that stuff, I don't know if you can really be depressed and anxious and and all the negative feelings, right? They definitely exist. But when you regroup and recenter yourself back to an act of gratitude or giving, just like Jesus, right? To tie it all back, I think that's really the transformation of life.
Yeah. And also gratitude makes you be present. Like it grounds you in the present moment. And that could be like grateful for just being able to see the contrast of colors in the sky or in this room, or looking at your kid and being able to be like, wow, like what an amazing experience this is. It really does ground you back into the present moment. And in the present moment, there is no anxiety. There is no depression. And that's why children are such a wonderful mirror. And you know it, right? They're this wonderful window into a version of you that you've lost. You know, my son's 5, my daughter's 10. I see the world creeping in on her. I see the culture, the comparison, this one's this and that one's this, and she does acting and I didn't get this role and so I see the world, and it's inevitable. Like it is inevitable. And my son, who's 5, is only present. Like he's only there in the moment, right. Good, bad, or indifferent. Like I told the story not long ago, like we were getting ready for school, and you know, I'm getting ready in the bathroom. He's all dressed. Everyone's okay. It's just on me. I was saying, just walks back into the bathroom and his pants are off. I'm like, dude, what happened to your pants? He's like, I don't know. I'm like, why did you take them off? He's like, I don't know. I'm like, can you please go put them on? He's like, okay. Like, if there's only the present moment, and to take that and be grateful for it, right? Like you said, like just the simple things that we do take for granted, when you're able to remove that and really put under a microscope, it does put you in the present moment, and there's no other feeling but gratitude.
Mm-hmm. And I'll still be very transparent, man. Like I still really struggle a lot.
Oh yeah.
On a day-to-day basis.
Of course. What do you struggle with?
Just my thoughts. You know, like I'm very focused now, obviously, on like, you know, building leaders and taking action. And, you know, there's been a lot of momentum this month specifically, and, you know, a lot of opportunities and stuff. But I was talking to a great friend of mine, and I was basically just saying, yo, man, like, although these opportunities are all here, and like, I really feel, I don't feel the best. And I had to call my therapist, right? And my therapist said something that was pretty deep. And it kind of changed, I guess, the way that I like think about things moving forward. And he said, with influence comes insecurities. And I said, break that down for me a little bit more. And he's like, well, when you're living a life that you're living and you're trying to serve, right? And by service, that doesn't mean like you got to give money. I'm a giver though. Like I give value, I give energy, I give time, I give focus, I give it all. And when I'm so focused on that and I'm just running around trying to, you know, inspire and encourage other people, like you become very insecure because there's nobody really doing that for you. And although I'm taking the action steps to move in the right direction of my life, there's nobody like in my ear that's doing the same thing that I'm doing for the men that I work with. They're not doing that for me. So
validation.
So subconsciously, it's not validation. It's like really breaking down the problems in my life and then giving them action steps to do it. Get what I'm saying? So with that comes this level of insecurity of like, man, like, what are you doing this all for? But the second I got off the call, and the thing I think that separates me from most people is even in those moments, I still get after it. I will not change, and you will not ever see me fold. I might start limping a little bit, but I will never quit. I will never quit. You know how many times I wanted to stop doing the podcast? I said, okay, that's a thought, but no, show up. Boom, start doing it. It wasn't until episode 156 that I had any traction on my podcast. Any real traction, you know, and that was a couple of years of doing it. And it's not only consistency, right? But it's emotional intensity behind what you do. And I'm intense.
You are.
I'm very intense.
So I've been doing this, I'll call it broadcasting, since 2007. We used to do the show on CD and hand them out to people. And I think the word consistency gets really misconstrued, especially in social media culture, because we think consistency means speed. We think consistency means every single day, no fucking negotiations. But if you say anything, 2007, you could say I've been inconsistent because there might be a month I didn't release an episode for a stretch, or because life gets in the way, right? But there's an underlining baseline of consistency. So you could say I was consistently inconsistent, but I was still consistent, right? And in a long enough timeline, that pays off, and that is being consistent. Mm-hmm. But in this, you know, social media morning routine world that we live in, this consistency seems like it has to be every single day, no negotiation, and there's no room for life and what I call valid humanistic excuses.
What is that?
Valid humanistic excuses.
Valid humanistic
Excuses.
Is humanistic? That's a word.
Yeah.
You're a very philosophical dude. I love it.
Yes, thank you.
For the past 5 years, I've trusted Kai Vision Studio with my podcast. And every time, Claudio delivers an exceptional experience. The setup here is flawless. Professional lighting, crystal clear audio, and a custom set that makes every episode look elite. As someone who speaks on leadership, I know how important it is to show up with clarity and confidence. This studio allows me to do just that. The quality here isn't just about the equipment, it's about the environment. Claudio has created a space where I can focus on my message, knowing the production will be sharp, engaging, and professional. In a world flooded with content, standing out matters. And having a studio like this gives me the edge to produce videos and podcasts that truly connect with my audience. If you're serious about creating high-quality content, I can't recommend Kai Visions enough. Claudio makes you feel at home, yet delivers at the highest level. 5 years in, I'm not going anywhere else.
So
the reason I call that is because they're excuses. I'm tired. Let's just take that.
Yep.
But there's validity to it, right?
Mm-hmm.
I work a full-time job. I have 2 kids. I put my son to sleep. I fall asleep in his bed. I wake up at 9 o'clock. I'm fucking like, what the fuck, right? So it's an excuse at the end of the day. If I go into David Goggins mode, that's a fucking excuse. Get over it. But it's still fucking valid.
Yes.
And that's what something I constantly struggle with. Seeing you, I say, this dude doesn't, like, seemingly, right?
Mm-hmm.
He's fucking consistent. Like, he doesn't have that internal, you're in David Goggins mode all the time. And I do wonder, how do you navigate not only those thoughts, but those seasons of life?
That's a great point. I mean, I can't tell you that I'm Goggins-esque all the time, but with my action, I am. Right. So like now I've gotten to a place to where like I think I've been able to almost like rewire my brain.
Mm-hmm.
And this is a real thing, right? But like people can tangibly, we think that our brain is static.
Right.
Our brain is not static. That's what neuroplasticity is.
Exactly.
It's the evolution of the brain, and like you can stretch it, you can create new patterns.
Exactly.
So I create new patterns in my life almost every day. And to somebody that's listening to this that wants to do that, the first thing that you could do in the morning, right? Instead of waking up looking at your phone, you can just place your hand on your heart.
Yeah.
Because 9 out of 10 people have never done that when they wake up. So now when you do that, the first 20 minutes of your day are instrumental, right? Then I can go into the bathroom, which I do frequently. I look myself in the mirror and I give myself affirmations. I love you. I love you. I love you. I love you. I love you 10 times, not 3 times, 10 times. And then I'll brush my teeth with my left hand. Stupid.
I get it. It's so hard. Yeah. Doing jiu-jitsu moves from the other side of the body is like, I get it.
So the first 20 minutes, again, that's where you can like really restructure the brain. And I know from that point forward, if I'm having like a bad evening that night where I'm in my thoughts, I'll do that the next day.
Yeah.
And that's something I typically, I don't really like share that with people. I share that like kind of internally with some high level clients that I work with and stuff like that. So you got some gold here, man. But that really helps me. But I do get the moments of negative thoughts, and not just negative. It's like, it will come to my mind, be like, yo, stop, just stop it all. Go back, go to work, collect the check, make your 6 figures for the year, get the benefits, get the pension, hang it up. Because this whole journey here is, you know it well.
Yeah.
This is very serious. So when those moments creep up, it's all about time under tension. And I talk about that in my relationship a lot too. Like when me and my girlfriend fight, it's all about the time under tension. So if we're mad at each other and she needs to go in a room, and one day we clock it and it's like, all right, we've just been mad at each other for 2 hours. The next time we fight, we got to do it in 1 hour and 45. And it's the same thing with the thought process too. What you're saying is extremely valid, Vin. Like the thought is there, and not only is the thought there, the excuse is valid.
Right.
So give yourself a moment, a minute, a night, a day. But I also have a habit that I never go 2 days.
Right.
I never go 2 days without working out, without reading my Bible, without doing the most important things in my life, because I already know what 2 days can turn into for me.
Oh yeah, and that's kind of where I am currently. Is like, you know, jiu-jitsu 2 or 3 days a week, but then there's that stretch in between where it's just like, oh boy, it's creeping. Like, I know. And there's a great book. I think I actually have it here. It's called Good Morning, I Love You. And the whole premise is every day this woman wake up, and it sounds silly to other people, the outside world, but saying I love you has a real impact. And I've started my morning every morning with just a quick little thank you, God, for waking me up today. You know, and that has shifted. And I've gone through my stretches of, you know, waking up, having the water, doing the plunge, doing the sauna, run the 5K, or meditating or whatever it is. And those have been serving. And I think what's also important to take away from this is like things change, right? It's just a part of life. And you have to extrapolate the good out of those things and the lessons you've learned, and also realize that as things change, you have to be able to pivot and adapt. So right now I'm in a season of my life where working out 5 or 6 or 7 days a week is not really in my lifestyle right now. Now, is that an excuse? Probably. But it's also, going back to that previous point, it's also pretty valid. So I have to be able to say, okay, this is as good as I can be, waking up at 4 and doing it. What did I learn from that? And what can I actually implement in this current season of my life that I learned from that? And just to kind of keep that baseline. And that's huge in regards to growing and developing in any way.
Really. But I think every man that comes into like even ACE struggles with that.
Yeah.
Like nobody has that under control.
Yeah. And
that's what I think the beauty of ACE is. Like we meet men where they are.
Yeah.
It's
at all different levels. And that's the beauty of it. And I mean, you could attest this. It's you, when you're in those groups, everyone's coming with their different background story, but then all of a sudden, like there's this one thing, this one thread that everybody is experiencing, and it's just being expressed in these different ways. And that's the most powerful thing, that connective tissue that brings everybody together. And when that happens, it's magical.
Right.
It's like next level. It's next level. I had that with the group. I mean, that was part of the evolution of the Council of Dudes and all this is it's like that feeling. I was like, I don't know whatever it is, that's what I'm going after.
The Council of Dudes started from, you've been doing this for years, no?
Yeah, the Council of Dudes has been going for 7 years. 7 years, but it was all over the place. You know what I mean? We're doing different places.
Yeah. Just networking in general.
Exactly.
Like, started from a concept and now you're here.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly. And that's what leads you to creating. And again, to that point of like pulling that thing out of the ether and bringing it to reality.
Right.
It's amazing.
No, it is.
I want to ask you, when you are in your Bible study, right? When you're reading scripture, how are you interpreting that? Because again, someone who reads the Bible as well, I feel like my relationship with what I'm reading has changed drastically. I used to look at it and go, oh, it's just metaphors. They're just stories and they're parables and it's all good. It actually didn't happen. But the deeper I've gotten into it, and I know you're a man of very deep faith, the more I've leaned into, oh, this is fact. This is seemingly fact. And it like blows your mind because, you know, I'll think of like miracles in a sense, big miracles that have been conducted. And I'll say, how's that possible? And then I think of like the micro miracles that are in my everyday life. I go, well, if that micro miracle can happen, so can the bigger ones. So how do you, when you're reading scripture, how are you internalizing that? How are you chewing on it?
Yeah. So the first thing I do now is I pray on it. And I pray that before I open my Bible, God gives me the ability to understand and truly feel the wisdom of the pages. Because I'm the same way. I used to look at the Bible and be like, what is this? But that's also why I promote this Bible, and I have no affiliation with them whatsoever, but Every Man's Bible, I spoke about it.
Yeah, for sure.
It breaks it down in a way that's very specific to men and the adversity of life. Parenting, fatherhood. I mean, like all the parenting and fatherhood, but you know what I'm saying? Like relationships and, you know, discipline, ego, adversity, and overcoming adversity. But then under the actual scripture, and also you have to look at what's called the NLT, the New Living Testament.
Yeah.
There's different versions, and some things can be very wordy, and then there's other ones that are not very wordy. I'm not very wordy. I'm very wordy. Yeah, I need to understand. But also there's like a synopsis under it. And I think I had a real shift too when I received that Bible from my girlfriend. I looked at the front page in the context, and there was like this, 300 words. You're talking teamwork, discipline, consistency, adversity, stress, love, kindness, compassion. I mean, every word. I'm like, you mean to tell me I read all these personal professional development books and I could have just read the Bible?
Yeah.
Right. So like I've come to this place to where I'm always saying that the Bible is the best personal professional
100%.
development book if you're open to receiving the word. Right. But I think what my answer to your question would be like, I pray to understand, because a lot of times our thoughts are very elsewhere. And I think intention is huge. So every time I step into my Bible, I have to like really set a strong intention to seek what's really coming into me.
Yeah, for me, it was kind of lingering in the back of my mind. Like, I kind of want to read the Bible. I didn't know why. I was just kind of called to do it. And then I started talking to people like, oh, yeah, I read the Bible. And I was like, really? I was like, that's amazing. I was like, what called you to do it? And different reasons. But exactly to your point, I'm like, if this is the #1 selling book of all time, it's probably for a reason, despite everything else, right? It's probably, right? So, I got to step outside myself and, yes, it's great to read all the personal development, but to your point, it's the best personal development book. It's the biggest book of all time.
Probably every version has been sold more than any book. 100%. I used to associate the Bible with like this big, like it needed a glass case and like it had like kind of like the Torah, like a scroll.
Yeah.
I didn't know like you can actually get like a pocket-sized Bible. And I'm like, what? I wish I knew this stuff earlier.
Yeah.
I mean,
yeah.
It's very interesting.
It's because we put these things and culturally we put these things on this pedestal when they don't need to be, right? They're so accessible. And that's the beauty of it, is it is accessible to anybody. And reading it does offer answers in crazy ways. Like you just kind of open and be like, what do I got to know today? And it's like, you put your finger down, all of a sudden you're like, holy shit, this makes a lot of sense.
And I feel like the Bible for me has taught me a lot about mental health in general. If I were to just say a couple words, I want you to just repeat back to me if you think it's a positive word or a negative.
Okay.
Okay.
I like this.
Stealing.
Negative.
Working out.
Positive.
Health.
Positive.
Mental health.
Positive.
Positive. Why do you say positive?
On what? Positive?
Of mental health.
Because I'm in a healthy mental state.
Okay. And I think for me, my answer to mental health typically was always negative. I associated mental health in a negative way.
Why?
Because I just thought like you couldn't talk about your feelings. This is me in the past, right? Like I thought like mental health or you're suicidal, you got depression, you got anxiety, all this. Now in the Bible, it's taught me so much about like the mental well-being. Like God talks so much about just meditating on the word.
Yeah.
Meditating on the word is just literally being there, thinking about what's being said and moving forward. There's a scripture. It's from Psalms, and it says, "Create in me a clean heart," right? "Create in me a clean heart and renew a right spirit within me." So when you have that negative thought, you just have to ask for a new one. And now my association with mental health is much different because mental health doesn't have to be negative, Dave. Like you're just a step ahead, right? Because some people just associate mental health with negativity. But I think about a cold, right? Like you can have a cold. Doesn't mean you're unhealthy.
Right.
You just have to get through the cold.
Right.
And it's the same with the mental health and the negative thoughts that just kind of creep in. We have to be able to shift the perspective. And back to your point, like you can have a day or so with your excuse and your sadness and overwhelm and all that. It's okay. It doesn't mean you're unhealthy and it doesn't mean you're unsuccessful, because the reality is you have a very successful life.
Right.
You know,
it's just a matter of what you lean into as success and what you define success as. And very often in any form of, anything, a job, a workout regimen, a spiritual endeavor, there seemingly needs to be this form of validation, and whether that be monetarily or likes or downloads or subscribe, whatever it is, because you're putting in the work, and seemingly, of course, you want the result. If you went to the gym every day and you didn't feel right, or you didn't look good or feel good, like, what the fuck am I doing this for? Right? And so many people don't even get past that buffer because it's not in the first, the second, the 100th workout or the 100th episode or the 100th conversation. It's not in any of that. It's in the constant pursuit and finding that validation, not in the end goal, but in the pursuit of it. And that's where I think, I get caught up in that all the time. One of my favorite quotes is comparison is the thief of joy, because it does deprive you of your own well-being. And that's a really hard thing for people to deal with. So how do you deal with being in a place of social media, having a presence, speaking on stages, and then not getting caught up in like that comparison mindset?
I don't look at it anymore. I look at people differently these days. I really do. Like, people have opinions and people want to hate, and that's okay. I really don't like. I still get in my feelings if I'm gonna be very transparent.
Yeah, of course.
Like when I get a negative comment or something, like, because I get clowns, bro, like clowns in my DMs, like crazy. Sometimes even on the podcast, the stuff that I see that they're saying, like, this is the dumbest message I've ever heard in my life, and I'm like, wow, like I really put thought into that one. Right. You know, right? It still sucks. Fuck. But the reality doesn't matter what people think. And that's why I think community is so important, because there's so many other people that you are influencing. Whatever it is that you're doing in your life, you're touching somebody. Yeah. It doesn't have to be at this grand level either. Like the things that you do on a daily basis. And that's where I think like social media is great, because I utilize social media to really expose my lifestyle. I don't typically, share all the losses by any means, because that's not what my social media is for. My social media, I try to encourage and inspire individuals to let them know, like, yeah, you know what? I will post a picture in the gym and say, yo, today was a really rough mental day. You know how many DMs I get off of like something like that? Because dudes are like, yo, man, like I could really resonate with that. I used to be a hater. That's how I used to be. But when I was a hater, how was my lifestyle? So for me, it's factual, right? When I used to hate, I had a real shitty life, my brother. Yeah. And now when I try to raise people up, my life raises up. And that's where I think that give is really important with people. And again, it doesn't have to be you giving money, but give intention, give energy, give focus to people, because they'll receive that. And that's how I like to believe in people before they believe in themselves.
That is so huge when it comes to that mental health aspect, because there's a great book, How to Win Friends and Influence People. If you haven't read it, I highly recommend it. And the number one takeaway that I had from that book was that people want to be seen. And whether it be a relationship, whether it be as a child, and I think that's the number one role of a father or dad, is to see the child, right? To see the child for who and what they are, and also who and what they can be, right? And so many people don't receive that. So many people, whether it be coaching clients, members of A.C.E, members of the Council of Dudes, there are so many people that walk around this world who don't feel heard and seen. And that's where people get so caught up in their own internal dialogue, and it changes the relationship that they have with the world, right? You become this shell of yourself, right? And you're not able to explore the childlike wonder that the world is offering you, right? And again, having children, and you know this, it offers such an amazing window into a version of you that you've seemingly forgot. So with being a dad, right, and embracing that role, how have you brought in the ACE mindset, right? The things you've learned into being a dad?
Into being a dad. Well, I think I'll leave the masculinity part out because I have a daughter. Yeah. But the vulnerability piece is huge. Yeah. I am just seeing with my child, man, the more vulnerable I am with her.
Vulnerable in what capacity?
So letting her feel. She falls on the floor and she cries. I don't say, get up, stop crying. I say, baby, what hurts? It's okay. Cry. Take a second. I said, it's okay to cry when you hurt. It just happened at the park. She was striving on the monkey bars, and she's going, and then boom, she falls and she starts crying. And immediately, like, people are freaking out around me at the park. The other parents are like, very calmly. I obviously made sure my daughter was good. And I said, of course. Here, come here. I said, what hurts you? And what we were able to find out at just 4 years old is that her body wasn't really hurting. She was just embarrassed that there was a line behind her. And I said, baby, it's okay. You take a second and you could cry right now. But what you're going to do is you don't have to go back on the monkey bars, but you got to go back and play. And this is how we face our fear. And I explained those things to her because now I know I've done the reverse with her too. She's been in a place where, she's kind of acting away, and, whether I give her a little tap on the ass or I scream at her, I see that behavior continues. Although she might be scared in a moment, it doesn't change the behavior.
Yes.
And that's why I think the gold with ACE is bridging that gap between masculinity and vulnerability. And the guys that are able to come and be vulnerable, they now find their strength. My daughter, me as a father, I find my strength when I'm able to be vulnerable. But now there's a big misconception here too, because some people, they'll say, and specifically I got some uncles too that are old school Italian, and they're like, you guys are soft. You guys are soft. We're real, heavy hitters.
Yeah.
It's a different era these days. And vulnerability paired with high level intentional action will transform your entire life.
Well, high level intentional action and high level emotional intelligence, right? I mean, my dad's a veteran. He's a cop. I grew up around. He's a Kora belt in Japanese jiu-jitsu. He is on paper as masculine as you can get, but I've seen him cry more than I can count, right? So I was always exposed to this household of real true masculinity and that vulnerability. So I was blessed in that regard, but you're absolutely right. And I think that as a leader of these groups, whether it be, an ACE or Council of Dudes, like we have to show up and be vulnerable. We have to share first, because in doing so, it gives those around us to go, oh, fucking Dave, he's fucking jacked. He's got sleeve. He looks fucking great. And he's sharing. It gives them the permission to also share, right? When you're showing up a way that says, I have all these great things going on, but I'm fucking struggling with this shit. I'm struggling with this. I'm struggling with that. I'm struggling with this. And it allows the other people in the room for their shoulders to go, oh, I'm not the only one.
You know what's funny, and I'll share this too, like, I won't get into the specifics of what I shared in the last dinner, but I thought, and I spoke to a couple of my boys after, and I thought that I like really had a poor performance, we'll call it, with dinner. I thought that like my words weren't connecting, and I'm very judgmental of myself, but I don't think in a bad way. Like I coach myself. It's weird. Like even when I have staff meetings, sometimes I'll go back into my office and look at the cameras and not listen to the words, but look at my body language and study myself.
Wow.
I do that.
Yeah.
So I kind of was reflecting in the car, and I hit a couple of them up, and I'm like, dude, I bombed that. Like I was terrible. They said, I don't know what dinner you were at. That was the best that I've heard you speak in a while. And I said, why was that? And they said, you shared two pivotal moments that you're struggling with currently. And one happened to be with my child.
Right.
And it really changed. It just reinforced exactly what you're saying. And even as a leader of my life and as a leader of men and, even a leader in business, right? Like I don't talk typically about the business, but like I manage teams of 25 to 200 employees, depending on the time of the year. Right. I work in a municipality where we manage $106 million. So like I could talk about that type of leadership, and that means nothing to me. It means nothing.
I get it.
You know what I mean? Because in those bigger scopes, I don't really have the ability to be vulnerable. And I don't really feel like I'm accomplishing anything. It's not until I get the validation from a guy at dinner that hits me up and is like, yo, man, I actually just had a dream. It reminded me of this situation with my child that you shared the other night. And long story short, I put hands on my daughter, not in a crazy way, but like I was very embarrassed of it and very ashamed that a man like me, even if I like tap her lightly, like, dude, what are you doing?
Yeah. And
I was very ashamed of it. And I kind of described that in depth at the dinner, and it hit for some people, and also just some other, relationship stuff.
Sure.
And I didn't have anything motivational really to say that night. It was more about,
or you didn't think you did.
Right. It was about me just kind of unloading my problems in my life. And I really think selfishly, Sean and I, like, we really created ACE because it's the thing we need the most.
Well, that's what happens. But that's really what happens. Like, even with this space, I was like, I need a space. And that's really the answer. Like you create in the world, or you're given the thought from God to create this thing in the world because you are the vessel and the vehicle that needs to express it.
Right.
And it's what other people need too. And that's exactly right. It's like, you're in the space like, well, I need this. Well, if I need this, and chances are good there's at least one other person that needs this. And it turns out there's a lot more than just one. And thank you for sharing that. And I get that, man. I get that parental aspect. And I mean, I've said it before, but there's nothing that will make you feel the abundance and vastness of love and the complete, like, just anger, like a child will. Like, I'm in charge of morning routine in my household, and if it's decent, it's great, right? Like, I'll take decent any day of the week because there's so many times. But, you know, and I've spoken about this as well, but how often, and the reality is it's not her, it's you, right? You missed something in your shit that you now are not managing correctly. And she's just showing you the fucking mirror. And you're like, fuck you. And you basically, you know, she just happens to be on the other side of it. But they are this amazing mirror that they present the best of you and the worst of you in both regards. And I totally get that, man. And it's hard. You know, there's moments where I'll yell at my kids or whatever it is, and I'll text my wife, like, I fucking lost on Vin today. I just feel like shit. Like, I feel so bad about it. And you almost don't know how to interact with them again afterwards. It's almost like this, like, I'm
going to stop you on that because I think that's very relatable to a lot of people that feel that guilt.
Yeah, for sure.
I associate guilt now with conviction. Conviction only exists in individuals who believe in a higher power. So if you're somebody that's out there that, you know, you haven't found your version of God yet, to me, one of the easiest things that I associate God with now is God's putting that feeling in you. And it doesn't have to be my God. It could be your God. It could be whatever God you look up to, that higher power, right? So I think a lot of people walk around feeling guilty. I'll challenge you because I don't think it's guilt. I think it's actual conviction of a higher power trying to tell you that you need to do better and you need to change.
That's beautiful. Yeah, you've lowered the bar of your standards. You've went below yourself. You've acted out of alignment of who you're, the best version of you is.
Do you think like all these thoughts just come from your brain? If you do, that's cool. But like, I find that really hard to believe. Like, I think every person, anybody that's had a child, 99% of them would say like, wow, it's a miracle. Like, to see what actually happens and to grow a human in a stuff like, is that like just the body? Like, no, I mean,
something else is
up there guiding it. Yeah. In my opinion, you know?
No, I totally agree with you. And it definitely, and you bring up the word thoughts and like these, like, again, in building this space, I remember, you know, I would keep on saying, and I'm sure it's the same thing with Ace and the dinners and the workouts and everything you're doing. It's like, I would lean into, and I said this, I was like, oh, my idea. And then one day in the shower, I stopped myself. I was like, no. This is not your idea. This is God's idea, and you are just embodying it, and you're blessed enough that it tapped you on the shoulder, and you're taking action on it, right? Because this idea is floating around you, right? And if you don't take action on it, it's going to find another vessel to express itself, because that's what ideas do. Ideas get expressed. And you bring up a good point in that. It's like these ideas or these feelings, there's something tied to them that we can't touch, but we certainly do feel it. Mm-hmm. And that's really, it's hard to navigate that. But once you do, you have a better relationship with those thoughts and feelings. Yes. It's a wild experience. Mm-hmm. It's a wild experience. I really like the idea of guilt just being this concept. And I guess that applies also, correct me if I'm wrong, it applies also to those valid humanistic excuses.
Absolutely.
You've fallen below your standard.
Yeah. I mean, I think a lot of men that I work with, and even to, you know, I'll be very transparent. Like, a lot of us struggle with, like, you know, wanting more. And even like if you're in a committed relationship, you'd probably be lying to yourself, and even the women that are listening too, right? Like, my girlfriend's probably lying to me if she doesn't notice that big jack dude in the gym, and, you know, but that's like lust, right? Mm-hmm. And these are very normal things that happen, right? But it's how quickly can you take that lust and refocus it to a place of love, right? Because if you know, lust is very self-fulfilling, right? Whereas love is very self-giving, right? Like, anybody can walk around and be like, oh, I want that, I want this, I want that, I want that. So I think when you're able to make that like thought in the moment, and again, nobody's perfect, but that's why I like Christianity so much, right? And being a Christian, because no disrespect to the Catholic Church, that's where my father was raised, and that was the only church that I knew up until a year ago, right? So I'll be very transparent. Yeah. But like, why am I going to, the hardest things in my life are relationships and parenting. We'll go there, right?
Sure.
You want me to talk to another man behind a curtain and tell him my struggles in a relationship? or with my child that he has no experience in himself.
Yep.
When I explained that to my father, he said, "Oh, I'm going to come to a Christian church with you."
Yeah.
And he still stayed in the Catholic church after that. But he was like, for you in your life where you're at right now, he's like, I couldn't agree more.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like,
I do.
And-
I think for me, sorry, but I think for me, I remove all that stuff. I don't even take into account. Like I was talking to my cousin, he's Christian. He was saying, oh, in Catholic churches, it's like you have to go through all these saints and people to get to God and Jesus. I'm like, really? That's a thing? I was like, I didn't even realize that was a thing. I thought I always had a direct line.
St. Mike's was right there.
I was like, I always thought that I had like a direct line. I never even knew that was a mindset that was implemented.
I didn't even know that. That's true.
I guess so. I didn't know that either.
What do you mean you have to go
Like
there to get
it's like how you pray to Saint Anthony if you lose your car keys.
Oh yeah.
Instead of
lose something actually. He's like I don't know if it's we all actually had one in our car. My brother, my sister, and I. We had a Saint Michael because it represents some level of safety.
Yeah, like protects you or whatever it is. Like is he the one that's fighting the devil?
His name is Michael. That's where.
Yeah. But it's like seemingly you're going through. So my daughter lost something the other day, and she's like, Saint Anthony. I go, no, just ask Jesus. And 2 seconds later, she found it. I was like, yes. I was like, that's awesome. But I didn't even realize that was a thing. And you're absolutely right. And I think that you have to take what out of all of these experiences, whether it be Christianity, Catholicism, whatever it is, and you have to take what works for you, right? For me and my family, it's a Catholic church. I took my daughter to a Christian church, and she was freaked out. She was just like, I don't understand. Yeah, she didn't understand. I was like, all right, it's funny because we went to Life Church.
Yeah.
And she wanted to sit down. And I was like, all right, yeah, let's sit down. And I was like, someone's going to come over and say something.
What, during worship?
Yeah. And this guy's walking by. I was like, oh, here we go. Get ready for the confrontation. He just walked right by me. Like no one cares. Good. And I do think that there's something that's very at ease about that type of atmosphere where there isn't this stand up, sit down, on your knees, pray. Okay, don't make a noise, put down the toy, be quiet. Like there's something about that's very antiquated. Right. And that's not what I take from it. I take what works for me. But I do think there's something beautiful about going to a Christian church and having the freedom and the flexibility to just be.
Dude, I forgot about the kneeling. And the last time I was in a Catholic church was when my grandfather passed away, and we did his church at I think it was like St. Paul's or St. Peter's or something. And I had to get on my knees, bro. And I'm sitting there and I'm looking down, and then I literally looked to my brother. And we just started kind of laughing, not out of disrespect, because obviously our grandfather's right there.
Oh, yeah, of course.
But I'm like, he would not tell me to get on my knees to start praying to him or whatever we're doing here. And again, it's no disrespect to anybody, but just for me, it's like, if I want to talk to God, I have a direct relationship with him. I can sit in his chair. I can just kind of call him out. God, I need you now.
Yeah.
Right.
And I think also, this is something that I'm getting more comfortable with, is asking for things, because I think that, I know for sure that I am very uncomfortable asking for things. I feel like I shouldn't ask for these things. But then when you change the relationship to a father-son relationship, and I think of my kids, and I'm like, if my kids came to me and asked for anything and I could provide it to them, I'm going to do it. Unequivocally, I'm going to do it. As long as,
What does the Bible say?
Asking you shall receive.
Okay.
It's that simple, but it is that simple, right? But we get caught again. You get caught up in all the pomp and circumstance and all the stuff, and it's like, it's something that I'm currently actively working on, is being more comfortable asking for the things I want out of life. And even if you take that out of a religious context, the old expression is like, closed mouths don't get fed, right? If you don't ask for the things you want in life or in the world, from your partner, from your kids, from the universe, whatever you want to say, out of your business, if you don't ask for it, you're not going to receive it, because you're not even in a place of integrity to put it out there to ask for it.
So I don't know if you've heard this, me kind of speak on this analogy before, but look at your children, right? Like, God is our father, right? That's what we believe.
Yeah.
Okay. So now if your child says, Dad, can you take me to the park on Friday? And you say what?
Maybe.
Okay. All right. But you'll say yeah.
Maybe if I can, right? Of course. Yeah, of course.
So you just gave him the answer yes.
Yeah.
And now if he comes to you the very next day, and it's Tuesday now, he says, Dad, can you take me to the park on Friday? You say, yeah, bud, I got you. I just told you yesterday. And then you come back on Wednesday and you see him again, and he's like, Dad, can you take me to the park on Friday? At some point, you're going to be like, yo, no, bro, because you just asked me 58 times. So God is the same way.
I do talk to myself like that. I call him bro all the time.
But God is the same exact way. This is my interpretation of it, right?
Yeah.
You ask and it's done. So now you start thanking him for the thing that you asked for, right? So like I don't consistently sit there and pray on the same things. I say thank you for the day, right? Please provide me with X, Y, and Z, and then it's done. Then the next day I'll thank him for providing it to me when he sees fit. But I'm not asking him for the same thing over and over again because he's going to think I'm annoying the same way you think your son is annoying for asking you the same park question every single day, Monday to Friday.
That's a perfect analogy.
It's mine. But so I interpret like God like this. This is why I'm the way that I am, because I have to relate it back to life.
Yeah, well, it's taking the ethereal and the metaphorical and the non-tangible and bringing it to something that's applicable, that is digestible and palatable to say, oh, this makes sense, right? When you put it in those contexts, it's like, oh yeah, that makes sense. Like, why would you keep on stop fucking asking me, bro? I said yes 3 days ago. How many times are you gonna ask me, right? And that's what makes it tangible again, and that's what makes it actually implementable, right? And I love that framework. I think that's really powerful because again, in the shift of, for me, just getting comfortable asking, you almost over ask, right? Absolutely. Because now I'm comfortable asking for it, and I don't want to be like, I'm asking too much, or I'm not asking. So you overcompensate for the lack of asking that you once had.
I don't know if you've seen this thing that's been going viral online. It's a photo of two individuals. One is God and one is a dentist, right? And it's like an analogy for like why people don't believe in God, right? And basically the dentist is like, hey, God, like, where are you? And he's like, I'm right next to you. And the dentist is basically like, well, you know, why do you do all these bad things in the world? And he's like, well, people don't come to me. And he's like, that doesn't make any sense. This is the dentist. So God says, hey, you're a dentist, right? And you fix people's teeth, right? And he's like, yeah. He's like, why do people still walk around with broken teeth if there's dentists? And God's like, I'm the same way. If you don't come to me, I can't help you.
That's beautiful.
Right? Like it's that simple. It's so simple because really there's dentists all over the place and people got jacked up teeth. Yeah. I mean, it just is what it is. Right. And I love stuff like that.
Yeah, absolutely. I know we're pressed for time. You have to pick up your daughter. I have kid pickup.
Yeah.
I feel like we could keep on going for hours. So, dude, thank you so much for doing this.
Absolutely.
So much value in, you bring value in what you do with ACE and with your coaching and with your mentoring, but just constant value. And you text me like, hey, I go into many of these things with no game plan, just the opening sentence of how I want to start. And then just let the rest unfold and let, the magic unfold throughout the conversation. And I know you make an intention to bring value, and you certainly did in this conversation. And one thing that I so want to bring out in all of these is people who are doing the work that they're meant to be doing. And whether that be your therapist, a doctor, a musician, there is an alignment piece that shows up in how you show up in the world. And, it's very evident that you are in alignment with who the man that you're supposed to be. And I'm just very blessed to know you, and I really appreciate you coming and doing this.
Well, thank you so much, my brother. And honestly, like, to anybody out there, I don't think life is about perfection.
Yeah.
It's about direction.
Amen.
And you spoke about alignment just now. So like, as long as you're going in the right direction, even on the days that you're struggling, it's okay.
Yeah.
You can struggle and you can still have a great life.
Yeah.
Right? You don't have, I think too often we just think like, oh, we can't struggle. And if we do struggle, like life sucks. Life does not suck, and I just want to say thank you for the work that you're doing. And this space is a great space.
Thank you.
I think we're very similar in a lot of ways. It's very different.
Yeah.
Even with the podcast, like, my style is very like, strategic and like, let's talk about X, Y, Z, because I want to make sure I'm delivering. And I think it's a nice balance and a nice blend. And I appreciate just everything that you bring to the table and the value that you bring as well, my brother.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Thank you so much. If people want to connect with you and find out more about ACE and everything you're doing with men, how can they get in touch with you?
Best way to find me is on Instagram at Dave Reg, or you can follow us at ACE Sanctuary on Instagram, or the podcast is the No Snooze Podcast, available anywhere you listen to podcasts.
I feel like the No Snooze Podcast could have been a whole conversation in its own right and the meaning behind it, but
don't worry.
That'll be on the next one that we record.
Don't worry.
Dude, thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you guys for tuning in. That's another epi in the books. You can follow us on Instagram at No Snooze Podcast. leave us a 5-star review wherever you listen to us. Subscribe to our YouTube channel, No Snooze. Shop the latest merch at nosnoozeshop.com. Come on.